Good morning, dear friends. Myself Abdullah Sherikar, working as Assistant Professor in the Department of Pharmacology at Sri Vile Parle Kelavani Mandal's Institute of Pharmacy. Today I am going to study about the hormone. The content first, after completion of this lecture, the students are able to understand how the control of the hormone secretion is regulated. What is the relation between the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland, and some general aspect of the anterior pituitary gland. First, the control of the hormone secretion or the release of the hormone basically occurs in the burst with little burst or no secretion between the burst. When fully stimulated endocrine gland causes the more frequent burst of the hormone release, and that increases the hormone level in the blood. If there is no stimulation of the endocrine gland, that means the level of the hormone in the blood is going to be decreased. The regulation of the hormone secretion causes or the prevent the overproduction of the hormone or prevent the underproduction of the hormone. Now the hormone secretion is regulated by first the signals from the nervous system, such as the nerve impulses to the adrenal medulla regulate the regulation of the epinephrine hormone. Second, the changes in the blood composition, particularly chemical composition of the blood. Say example, the blood Ca plus 2 level regulate the secretion of the parathyroid hormone. So there are other hormones that also regulate the hormone secretion. Say example, adrenocorticotropic hormones stimulate the release of the cortisol by the adrenal cortex. The hormone secretion is mainly regulated by the negative feedback mechanism. That means most hormone regulatory system works via negative feedback system, and little or the minor with the positive feedback. Say example, during childbirth, the oxytocin hormone stimulate the contraction of the uterus that causes the uterine contraction and stimulate more oxytocin release. Now the hypothalamic and pituitary gland. What is the relation between the hypothalamic and pituitary gland? First, the pituitary gland or it is also called as the hypophysis. It is a master of the endocrine gland. Means why it is so called as a master of the endocrine gland? Because it secretes the several hormones that also control the activity of the other endocrine gland also. In addition to this, the master of this endocrine gland, the pituitary gland itself has a master, and that is nothing but the hypothalamus, a small region below the thalamus. That is a work as a major link between the nervous and endocrine system. So hypothalamus is a major link between the nervous system and the endocrine system. Now this the hypothalamus secretes the different nine type of the different hormones, namely corticotropin releasing hormone, thyrotropin releasing hormone, growth hormone releasing hormone, gonadotropin releasing hormone, melanocyte inhibiting hormones, dopamine, somatostatin, oxytocin, and vasopressin. Oxytocin and vasopressin, these are the stored hormones. The pituitary gland produces seven different type of the hormones, namely thyroid stimulating hormone or TSH, adrenocorticotropic hormone, that is ACTH, growth hormone or the somatotropic hormone, that is STH or GH, follicle stimulating hormone, that is FSH, luteinizing hormone, that is LH, prolactin, oxytocin, and antidiuretic hormone, that is ADH. The hypothalamic and pituitary hormone regulates first growth, second development, third metabolic activities, and last one is the homeostasis of the body. So both hypothalamic and pituitary hormone regulate the overall growth of the body, overall development of the body, overall metabolic activities occur in the cell, and homeostasis of the body. The pituitary gland, it is a P-shaped structure, measures about 1 to 1.5 centimeter in diameter, and it lies in the hypophyseal fossa of the sella turcica of the sphenoid bone. The infundibulum, that is nothing but the point of attachment, or the infundibulum attaches the hypothalamus to the pituitary gland. So it is regarded as a point of attachment for the pituitary gland to the hypothalamus. The anatomically and functionally, the pituitary gland has two lobes or the two region. One is the anterior pituitary, second one is the posterior pituitary. The lobes of the pituitary gland, first one is the anterior pituitary, second one is the posterior pituitary. Anterior pituitary, it is also called as the adenohypophysis, and it accounts for the about 75% of the total weight of the gland. It is composed from the epithelial tissue, and it has two parts. One is the pars distalis, that is the larger portion, and second one is the pars tuberalis, that is the seat around the infundibulum. While the posterior pituitary, it is called as the neurohypophysis, and it accounts for about 25% of the total weight of the gland. It is composed of the neural tissue. The anterior pituitary is composed from the epithelial tissue, while posterior pituitary is composed of the neural tissue. And it has two parts, that is posterior pituitary has two parts. One is the pars nervosa, that is the larger bulbar portion, and second one is the infundibulum. Now the anterior pituitary or the adenohypophysis. This is your the hypothalamus, and this is point of the infundibulum that attaches the anterior pituitary to the hypothalamus. Say example, the hypothalamus secrete the releasing hormone that activate the anterior pituitary cells, which causes the release of the pituitary hormones in the circulation, and that regulate the body activity like growth or the reproduction. Same, in addition to this, hypothalamus also releases the inhibiting hormone. So it inhibits the activation of the anterior pituitary. So there is no activation. So there is no release of the hormone into the circulation. Therefore, there is no any body activities. So therefore, the hypothalamic hormones are the important link between the nervous system as well as the endocrine system. So the whatever the cells which are present in the hypothalamic region, that mainly regulate the activity of the endocrine gland. Now the hypophyseal portal systems. The hypothalamus has some neurosecretory cells, and that secrete the releasing hormone, and that activate the anterior pituitary gland, and therefore there is a release of the hormone into the circulation. Same, the hypothalamus also releases the inhibiting hormones, and therefore there is no activation of the anterior pituitary cells. So the hormone produced by the hypothalamus, they follow a sequence of the path through a portal system. Through a portal system. The whatever the cells which are present in the hypothalamus, they releases the hormone, and that travels through a system that is called as the portal system and act on the pituitary gland, anterior pituitary gland, and based upon the nature of the hypothalamic hormone, there is activation or the inhibition of the pituitary gland, and according to the hormone is released or the inhibited. Usually what the heart ejective blood into the systemic circulation, that travel through the artery, then capillary, and then vein, and from vein the deoxygenated blood is collected again coming back to the heart. This is a normal circulation of the blood. But in portal system, the whatever the blood ejected by the heart, that first traveled into the one capillary network, followed by the portal vein, and from the portal vein the hormone is travel through the second capillary network and again reach to the heart. Now this is the optic nerve, this is the optic chiasm, and this is your the hypothalamic region. So in and this is your pituitary gland. And the above the optic chiasm, there are the clusters of the specialized neurons, and these neurons are called as the neurosecretory cells. These neurons are called as the neurosecretory cells. So this is the hypothalamus, and this is your the optic chiasm. Above the optic chiasm, as early previously told, there are some neurosecretory cells. These neurosecretory cells, they synthesize the hypothalamic hormone, whether it is a inhibiting or whether it is a releasing hormone, basically in the cell bodies of the neurosecretory cells, and they are packaged into the vesicles, particularly in the cell bodies. And from the cell bodies through axon transport system, it is coming into the axon terminals, and where it is stored into the vesicles. When nerve action potential reaches to the neurosecretory cells, there is a exocytosis process, so that releases the hormones into the primary plexus. These primary plexus, these are the branches of the internal carotid artery, which are located in the infundibulum portion. ठीक. So after the nerve action potential, the whatever exocytosis processes occur, and from the whatever the stored the hormone, that is the hypothalamic hormone, it is released into the primary plexus of the hypophyseal portal system, and these primary plexus are nothing but the branches of the internal carotid artery at the point of the infundibulum. From the infundibulum, these or the from the primary plexus, these hypothalamic hormone, they travel through the portal vein, through a system or through a channel that is called as the portal vein, and they came into the secondary hypophyseal plexus, which is present in the anterior pituitary gland, where they causes the activation of the anterior pituitary cells. The action of the hypothalamic hormone on the anterior pituitary cells causes the secretion and drainage of the anterior hormones again into the secondary plexus. The hormone which is present, particularly anterior pituitary hormone, which is present in the secondary plexus, is travel through a chain through a portal system that is called as the anterior hypophyseal vein, and from this anterior hypophyseal vein, the hormone it is coming into the general circulations, and from there it went to the or it marches to the towards the target site, where it exert the typical action. If the hormone, particularly anterior hormone, is act on the other gland, that type of the hormone are called as the tropic hormone or the tropins. The type of the anterior pituitary cells: first somatotropes, second cells thyrotropes, third type of the cells gonadotropes, fourth lactotropes, and last one is the corticotropes. So there are five different type of the anterior pituitary cells that secrete the different type of the. First, somatotropes, it secretes the human growth hormone, or the it is also called as the somatotropin. The human growth hormone stimulates the several tissues to secrete the insulin-like growth factor, that is the IGF, and this IGF stimulates the general body weight and also regulate the several aspect of the metabolism. Second cells, thyroid, they secrete the thyroid stimulating hormone, and they are alternatively called as the thyrotropin. The thyrotropin or the TSH control the secretion of the thyroid gland as well as control the activities of the thyroid gland. Now the gonadotropes, they secrete two type of the gonadotropins. One is the follicular stimulating hormone or the FSH, other one is the luteinizing hormone or the LH. Both togetherly, the FSH and LH stimulate the secretion of the estrogen and progesterone hormone, also stimulate the maturation of the oocyte in the ovaries, also stimulate the sperm production, and stimulate the secretion of the testosterone in the. Next type of the cells, the lactotropes. First, they secrete the prolactin hormone. and that prolactin hormone initiate the milk production in the mammary glands. Next type of the cells, that is the corticotropes. They secrete the adenocorticotropic hormone ACTH or the corticotropin. This ACTH stimulates the adrenal cortex to secrete the glucocorticoids such as cortisol. Now the control of the secretion by the anterior pituitary. The control of the secretions mainly occurred by the neurosecretory cells which are present in the hypothalamus that secretes the inhibiting hormone or the releasing hormone. So neurosecretory cells which are present in the hypothalamus, they secrete the 5 releasing hormone or and 2 inhibiting hormone. The 5 releasing hormone stimulate the secretion of the anterior pituitary hormones, whereas 2 inhibiting hormones suppress the secretion of the anterior pituitary hormones. Second mechanism, that is a negative feedback mechanism. The hormones released by the target glands itself decreases the secretion of 3 type of the anterior pituitary cells. Example, the secretory activity of the thyrotropes, gonadotropes and corticotropes decreases when the blood level of their target gland hormone increases. Example, the CRH which is released from the hypothalamus, neurosecretory cells of the hypothalamus, it act on the anterior pituitary cells which releases the ACTH into the circulation. This ACTH act on the adrenal gland where it causes the stimulation of the cortex of the adrenal gland and which produces the hormone, that is the cortisol, that is the glucocorticoids into the circulation. This released or the secreted cortisol itself act on the anterior pituitary cells where it causes the suppression of the anterior pituitary corticotropes to inhibit the release of further ACTH. Again, this corticotrophs act on the neurosecretory cells which are present in the hypothalamus to prevent the secretion of the CRH. Ultimately, both of these events decreases the secretion of the corticotropin and corticotropin releasing hormone. References: Principle of Anatomy and Physiology by Gera Tortora and Textbook of the Medical Physiology by the Guyton. Thank you.